The next speaker that we'll do Graham's presentation before lunch, and Leanne, I think we'll kick off with you after lunch because I think they're going to need a little time to set up. And I know that some people are getting hungry. Graham is a very special guy because I always think that every entrepreneur is kind of like a theme and variation. They kind of do one thing and then they kind of vary, but it's the same theme. And Graham has actually been jumping around a little bit, in different areas. And we first got to know Graham through Kevin. Thank you, Kevin, for introducing us to Graham, who came to the FT Mykonos and was part of the experience in Mykonos. And when you said that you were building this business, I wanted to hear more about it. So would you please welcome Graham Hellier?
Thank you very much. Obviously, the spot before lunch, so I will be brief, I promise you. Okay, and thank you, Julie, very much. And I am special, but sometimes that's in inverted commas. Okay, good. That is my slides. Right, so I'm here to talk about the World Continuing Education Alliance, or as Kevin calls it, whatamouthful.com. So this is a global continuing education platform that shares healthcare education with healthcare professionals around the world. First of all, a bit about me. So I'm an entrepreneur, started with nothing, worked on market stalls when I was 13 years old, and with the money I saved, I started my first business at 19, which was renting out sunbeds, the tanning machines. Now, I started with £800, and I had a quick look yesterday. £800 back in 1987 is the equivalent of just under £2,000 today. So £2,000 was my opening capital. So started teaching personnel, which became the largest teaching agency in the UK. I started that when I was 26. Started that with £25,000, sold it at the age of 33 for a bit more than £25,000, and effectively retired. But of course, couldn't retire. Too many things to do. So I didn't actually work. I invested into many businesses, and I'm a major shareholder and chairman in quite a few companies now. But in 2011, I suddenly had an idea in Barcelona. Whilst Lucy was shopping, I was standing outside daydreaming, thinking about continuing professional development for dentists, which was a company I was looking at that time. I ran into the shop to Lucy and said, I've had the biggest idea of my life. I'm going back to work. She should have said to me, no, go and sit on the beach. But anyway, I went back to work, set up a company in Spain. And within 2 or 3 years, we had 45 staff in the office in Spain. So what we do is we supply continuing professional development through what's known as a MOOC, which is Massive Open Online Courses, which is the sharing of education content through a network. And what we're trying to do, or what we're doing, is creating value in the network itself. So we're not a content provider, but we are the facilitator to meet up with students with the content they're looking to consume. Right, so CPD, what is it? Continuing Professional Development is the legislative requirement for professionals to study between 20 and 40 hours of education every year. So we actually supply education into the healthcare space. So this is doctors, nurses, midwives, pharmacists. They have to study this education every year or they will use their license. So people which come to our portals, they don't come there once, do one course on photography or Excel spreadsheets. They come back every single year. So, as I said, we don't create our own education content. What we do is we work with the world's leading education content providers. So we have over 40 partners that we distribute content for. You'll see some big names on here like Johns Hopkins, but also examples of the National Health Service. So the National Health Service in the UK spends millions creating education content for their healthcare professionals. They have no distribution channels outside of the UK, or very limited distribution channels, and we are one of their partners to distribute their content around the world. So in our network, we have over 1,600 courses, which is one of the largest resources of healthcare CPD on the planet. To distribute our education content, we go to each country and we partner with either the legislator, which is the Nursing Council or the Ministry of Health, or we partner up with the association for that country. We also actually have a global partnership agreement with the World Medical Association and with the International Council of Nurses, which connects us with all of their members throughout the world. So the educators, it's quite an easy decision for them to work with us because we create additional distribution for them free of charge. We create additional revenue, but also a lot of the education providers have foundations and they're looking to supply their education content for the good of healthcare outcomes. And we enable them to massively increase the learning by doctors, nurses and midwives, and therefore the outcomes for healthcare. We also block the countries our systems work in. So because we work with partners in each country, if we're in Nigeria, for example, it's a closed system. So the educator doesn't need to worry about their education they may be selling in America or Canada being consumed and therefore affecting their market. It's all additional revenue. It's all additional audience. Okay, so as I said, I started this business in 2011, but by the time we got to 2019, I'd personally invested £3.1 million. I had £3.6 million from 65 other investors, and I was lost. I had a business that was still seemed like a great idea, but it was losing money, it was not gaining traction, and to be frank, I was out of ideas. So what I did was I was very lucky to find a new CEO, replace myself, and things have been going very well ever since. So this is not probably the most likely looking superhero, but David is, in my mind, a superhero. He's formerly a CEO, but also a chief technical officer, a very clever technical guy who worked in publishing for years. And what I didn't realize was that we weren't a learning management system, we're actually a content provider. We're a publisher. And what he did was he worked very heavily on the content itself. Everything now is formatted out of India. It's all formatted in the same form. It all delivers beautifully in our systems. Our search engines are brilliant. And he really made it possible for people to find the best content in the best format and to enjoy their user experience, which was something which I hadn't got right. So what we do is we have a big technology stack, which we've spent millions of pounds developing. And each system is white labeled for each country. So this is an example of, I think it's Ghana. So you can see the app is the Ghana Nursing Council and Midwifery. So when it goes out to their nurses, they know they're working on the system approved by effectively their government. Even the completion certificates are formatted for that country. So everything is completely white labeled. The tech stack's actually very big. So we've got apps which are both Apple and Android, which is where the majority of the education is studied on. You can also download the education onto the phones and then study it at home, especially important in low and middle income countries where the internet's poor. So you may be at hospital, download the content, go study at home, take the exam. Next time you connect to the internet, your results will be uploaded to our system. Okay, we also have the standard learning management system, the desktop system. We have a webinar system, so we actually run a lot of webinars on the phones as well as on desktop, and we get paid to organise audiences for webinars. So if the WHO is wanting to put a new initiative out into a certain country, they will actually pay us to connect with the healthcare professionals and to organise the webinar. The webinars count as CPD. Our system automatically allocates the certificates and updates the records for all the attendees for the webinars as well. We also connect with publishers. On the system, you can search under different healthcare publications and get different articles. And again, in some countries, you can read those articles as complying CPD. We have effectively a community app, so a Facebook app. Again, closed communities for the midwives, the nurses, closed communities for the doctors, where they can share information, talk about their experiences of the training that they think is the best, and they can do that on a country basis, regional basis, and eventually on a global basis. So everything that we do is then reported to. So the legislator has their own administration portal, and every time a nurse or a doctor or a midwife takes some CPD, it updates their HR records through APIs that we provide into their systems. So they can then track the compliance of all of their healthcare professionals in one simple place. And we provide all this to them for free. Okay, the other thing which David brought on, which was very important, was our engagement platform. So when I used to onboard people, before I used to leave it to the associations to contact their members and to get them onto the systems, that simply didn't work. We now get, in a GDPR compliant way, all the data of every country we work in. We send out text, WhatsApp, emails, we get them to register, and then after that, we engage them through the actual platform itself, driving them back to the system to take as many hours of education as we can encourage them to do to make sure that they fulfill their CPD. Okay, so what we have now is millions invested into a technology stack, a platform that's working, and we're ready to effectively scale this in a very big way through many other regions of the world. But I'll take a step back to 2019 when David came in to replace me and save the company. At the same time, we have a gentleman, Craig Fitzpatrick, also an unlikely looking superhero, but he is another superhero. Craig was tasked with launching into Africa as our test site to take over a region. So Craig was tasked with dealing with all of the governments, the councils, the associations, and getting the best content for that region. That was 2020 we then launched. We're now in 28 countries, working with the governments and associations in those countries. We have over 500,000 users, growing at 10 to 15,000 users still a month. We've delivered over 4.5 million courses in the last 2 years. And that actually represents, there's been a total time on the system of over 6 million hours of people studying different content on the system so far. Okay, so in terms of revenue, what we've been doing is focusing on user growth. So the Facebook model where we've been self-funding and we've been looking to as seamlessly as possible to grow our user base. But this year, our year end is in June. We're going to have a very small loss of about £100,000, and that's despite the fact that we're continuously investing into the technology. So we're basically a break-even tech company already, but obviously break-even is not where we need to be. So we're now building the revenue stack. There's a number of ways that we generate revenue from the user base. The most obvious one is the education content itself. So a good example, we've just signed a contract with Nigeria, the biggest country in Africa in terms of gross domestic product, 250,000 nurses, and they have signed up with us that all their nurses are going to have to use our system, and there's going to be a fee applied to every single user. So that revenue, there's a 3-year cycle, so we'll bring on 250,000 paying nurses out there over the next 3 years. We've also launching in Q3 through the Egyptian Medical Association. They've got 120,000 doctors. We're launching a subscription of basically they have to pay to access this, and that's again launching in Q3. Another one which I'm very keen on is the fact that we are going to be changing our free systems to freemium, which means that they'll all be able to access the required hours of CPD, but if they wish to buy or they wish to view additional content or the journals or other services that we provide, they will then pay to upgrade to be able to see that content. Right, the other way that we make money is that certain organisations pay us to distribute their courses, and we then promote those courses more heavily within the system. We also organise, as I mentioned, webinars. So we're extremely good. If you're in Zimbabwe and you want to do a course or a webinar in Harare, because of our data sets are so accurate, we can actually choose nurses working in Harare, even different medical facilities of different specialties, and we arrange the webinar groups, and we get paid very well for organising those, and they're very well attended. The other thing we do is surveys and research. So when you've actually finished studying, before you get your exam results, we ask you to fill out a survey. It could be for an NGO, it could be for a pharmaceutical company, and we then get paid for generating that data. At the moment, we're doing about 800 form fills a day, but this is very new. This is going to grow massively and it's going to make a lot of money for the company, making it more sustainable to continue to be able to provide free education around the world. Okay, the other thing which we don't have yet, but what we'll be doing is, as you were saying, copying, which is always the best way. So a company I'll talk about in a moment, which is a very big unicorn, they do something very similar to us, but they also have effectively the medical LinkedIn, so recruitment services. They also work with referrals, so if you want to find a medical professional, you can do so through the platform. And the other big thing which is coming down the line is telehealth. Now, I'm kind of hoping that we'll be bought out by the stage we get to here, but this will be an additional service that will be added later on. Okay, so as I was saying, we're now ready to scale. We've taken over one region with the biggest healthcare network in Africa. And we now have many different organizations that are very happy to give us great references. The educators are on board. The technology is all proven. All we now need to do is to take on additional partners, which are free systems. It's a no-brainer for them, and to then roll that out into different regions. So we're actually just at the start now of raising £3 million, which in the world of technology is a small amount of money, but we've already baked the cake. We just need to keep on putting the ingredients in. Okay, so the first places we're launching to next are the Middle East. Middle East basically because we have very good relationships through Africa as we've moved across to that region. And we're in advanced conversations with a lot of countries in the Middle East, which of course is not the low and middle income, so it's a slightly different model, revenue model. But the other one which I'm very excited about is Latin America. So by converting our courses into Spanish and to Portuguese, we believe that we can very quickly take over the Latin American region as we have done in Africa. After that, it's going to be a bit bizarre that Europe actually has the worst CPD system on the planet. 24 languages in Europe, quite a complicated place to deal in. But at the moment, CPD, we believe, is actually not being dealt legally because there's free movement of people, but there's not a standardised CPD. So we've been working with the European Federation of Nurses a bit and some other organisations about how we can do that. But at the moment, it's in the too slow box compared to the opportunity in the Middle East and Latin America. Okay, so we're an impact business, but we are a business. And you know, I set this up with the vision to do a lot of good, but also to set up a highly valuable tech company. A good example of a company which does something similar to us is Docquity. They're based in Southeast Asia. In 2019, they raised, how much was it? They raised £8.5 million at a £39 million valuation. And they had 110,000 users compared to us at more or less 5 times that. And they were also losing considerable amounts of money compared to us being almost at break even. That's not a bad idea. They actually did. They raised the money successfully. They've now got over 300,000 users, and they've now got a good business which is moving up. So I'm using the snapshot of where they are compared to where we are, but they are moving forward and they're doing well. We now need a bit more money to buy them than we would have done then. Timing in life is everything, and hindsight is 2020. Right, so here we are now. So this is starting in 2020 when the two supermen got together, and you can see our user growth has been very steady through here. So we're not projecting the hockey growth, which I would normally like to show in a .com business. We're just showing a gradual growth as we increase still in Africa, we add the Middle East, and then we start to take over users into Latin America. So these figures here, which I believe are very achievable, based on the fact we've already achieved, will get us to over 1.6 million users by the end of 2024. Okay, but this is the lovely one for me to point at. So this is the true unicorn in the market. There's a few, but Doximity, I don't know if anybody's heard of Doximity. Have you heard of Doximity? Okay, so they listed in 2021 for over £7 billion. They effectively are almost identical to what we do, except for they make a lot of money. And we're not worth £7 billion. So, but apart from that, they've got 1.8 million users, which are in America, therefore much more valuable than users in low and middle income countries. But by the time we get to the end of 2024, as I say, we're hoping to be at 1.6 million professionals. Are they worth 10%, 20%, 5%? It doesn't matter. The number's still a very big number. Okay. That was as quick as I could be.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Wow, that's great. Really well presented. So, I mean, well done for so many things that you showcase there all the way through, and I think you're bit of a superhero yourself there in terms of pulling all that together and going after that market. It's really compelling. To what extent do you think that the more traditional media or publishing event companies like Informa and things like that, do you think that those guys are going to start to play, or are they too broad, or how do you see that group of buyers with the Doximities and more the specialists going after healthcare professionals and CPD?
Yeah, well, a lot of the publishers, especially the medical publishers, already provide CPD services,
Okay.
but no one's got this business model that we have, which is the sharing of content.
Right.
And what we find is also with publishers is the other educators look upon them as competitors.
Right.
They don't look upon us as competitors. They look upon us as a network who, although, as I say, David's maybe realised we're actually a publisher, we're not seen as a publisher.
Right.
So, yeah, they're definitely competition. But it's a huge market, but it's not likely that they can replicate this business model.
So is there a change in just, pedagogy is not a word that you used at any time during this, is, the whole idea of how the pedagogy of, the training of people is just different. That's just that's a kind of different space. It's a different way of thinking about it.
Well, CPD is a little bit, so there's a little bit of a conflict of whether CPD is training or whether it's just staying up to date with being relevant to what's happening in your sector.
Right.
So there's still other training which takes place separate to CPD. But obviously we're in the right place at the right time in terms of things moving towards online learning. And, these glasses that were, spoken about there, this is, in the future, this will all be delivered. They'll be able to be doing much more practical training using the online facilities, and it all comes down to the network. So that's why we don't provide content. That's why we don't actually try to look at any hardware technology. We are just a network that we can flex to whatever is in vogue in terms of the CPD learning.
Question. We got Jack with a question here.
There's also legal that does continuing education. You're strictly in medical, although your name of your company sounds broader. Sounds like it could be another swim lane. But my question is, a lot of the legal side, at least, is sort of being given away for free. And what you see is a bit of from the various providers, you see sort of a race to the bottom, which is it gets cheaper and cheaper. Now, the party that provides the content typically has to be paid something, a royalty. I didn't see what the slice is that the content provider is asking. I assume there's some slice of revenue. But here's the question. The thing that makes these various platforms, at least on the legal side, sticky is they keep track of the data. So if you're a member of the bar, as I am in California as well as New York, they will track, well, you have this many more credits you need for New York, and your California credits don't apply. And then they'll make recommendations. Since you took this course for California, you may want to take this course for New York. And then it's like a consultative approach that's keeping track of all that data, which means I go back to that same provider. Are you doing stuff like that?
Yeah, we
to
do.
Keep it sticky?
We do exactly that. So all certificates are issued within the platform. We've got APIs that then link up to the actual HR of the relevant regulator. We have learning pathways, which is what you're talking about, where we have suggested education pathways that we build in depending on what they have taken before. There's a whole load of AI that goes into this technology. And again, with David's background in publishing, that's exactly what he's driven. But you're completely right. The World Continuing Education Alliance wasn't supposed to be about healthcare. I set up, when I was failing, I set up in legal in the US. I set up in realtors because we got told off for calling them real estate agents. We set up in, we literally, there's 110 different sectors that have CPD. Funeral directors have got CPD. And this platform can be used very easily. In fact, one of the business methodologies I'm thinking about is a franchise to, say, somebody in funeral directors or architects that we're not going to do. And we can give them the technology. They can have a separate company, which we own, for example, 50% of, and then we can add the other sectors on. But none of that's in our projections, but that's something which I'm actually looking to work on at the moment as well.
And get recognition globally, so then every country will have at least somebody transfer. A midwife goes from Nigeria to London, she has a certificate which is globally recognized.
Yeah, so we do actually do webinars and things for the WHO. They've tried to do a similar type platform, which hasn't really worked out for them. We partner with the World Medical Association and the International Council of Nurses, and there's an organisation called CGFNS, which is an American organisation which supports the freedom of nurses into Africa with a standardised education, and so. Yes, no, absolutely. So the idea is throughout Africa now, for the first time, they have standardised CPD, which is our platform. So you can move anywhere, and you would have done. Look, you might have 20 hours required in Nigeria compared to 30 hours in Zambia, but you can move within 28 countries, and you will have had the same access to the same education content. Absolutely. You get certificates, you get credits. It's all formal training. And that's actually one of the reasons why education providers put their content into our system is it's recognised as being accredited content when it's in our system. So people study because they need to, because they want to learn, but it goes back to the I need to, which it needs to be accredited. So other people's education isn't of any value in those countries if it's not through our system. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of a loose term.
Bit of a strange one because I've been your friend for such a long time, but yeah. And it's a question I've not asked, but is there not if you've got that many users, getting revenue through advertising, right? So to like all the big companies that are providing medicines, etc., to target those nurses, because that would be a very quick revenue stream.
It is. So this is the issue you've got with pharma. We can help with research and we can help with form filling, which is actually very valuable because it's giving market research into a field. But a lot of the education providers are actually very nervous about relationships with pharmaceutical companies. And so therefore we have to be very careful about what we can invite into the platform. That would be a massive revenue maker, but we would lose quite a lot of the educators. And of course, the education content is the foundation of our system.
And Graham, you persisted for, really honest. I love the honesty about, you put a lot of money in it, you persisted and stuff like that. Were there any moments where you thought, I'm going to give up the ghost?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think much helped by the fact I had quite a few friends investing in it as well. So that made it difficult to walk away from. And I often see CEOs that come to me for money. And I call it CEO disease. They're failing. Their business idea is crap. It's never going to work. And no matter how I tell them they've got CEO disease, they cannot see it. And I used to look in the mirror and go, have I got CEO disease? Because I still think this is an amazing idea, but do I have CEO disease?
Okay.
And when it got to the stage when I was still burning £10,000 a week, and I'd used up the other people's equity money, and I was putting £10,000 a week in, and every week you go, there's another 10 grand, another 10 grand. Where am I going with this? So, yeah, a little bit of madness perhaps, but I really believed in this, and I knew that I hadn't got things quite right. But 85% of it was right. It was amazing how just those few tweaks to the content and getting the search engines working correctly made a very big difference.
Well, we look forward to meeting David and your other partners there. Any other questions? Graham, thank you very much
Super.
for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks.